meters. Kaya ipinapayuhan natin ating mga kababayan living along these coastal areas na maghanda o maging alerto. While yung nakadilaw, ito po yung up to 2 meters wave height dahil sa storm surge. Next slide please. Now ito naman po ang status ng ating mga dams. Although generally mga dams level natin ay safe, but like for example ang GAD, bagamat umakyat ng 0.34 meters, but ang normal high level niya ay mataas pa.
This is the one we should be keeping an eye on. There are 2 pages to this actually. So far, ang pinakamalapit is Pantabangan to the high level, normal high water level, if I'm not mistaken. Nonetheless, whatever it is, meron pa yata dito. 80.5. Anyway, we have to watch this carefully because we're just beginning. This is just the start of the rainfall. So yes, we're all right for now, but mukhang inevitable na mag-overflow o magre-release tayo ng tubig. So let's already start thinking about the downstream areas na tatamaan when we release the when we are forced to open some of the gates para palabasin para pababain yung tubig. Pero planuhin natin na mabuti. Maybe if what we can do is do a measured response. Kahit hindi pa high water level, magbitaw na tayo ng kaunti. Pababain na natin na hindi apektado yung mga downstream communities. Magbitaw na tayo ng tubig para pagdating ng malakas na ulan, mababa na, hindi naman mababa, pero mas naibaba natin yung tubig para meron tayong konting breathing room. Ika nga. We have a little area that to watch na hindi papaabutin natin sa high water. Well, it is the gate open. Wala pa naman so far.
Mr. President,
Yes.
that's continued spillage already.
Yeah.
For Dinga and
Yes.
Bagan.
So let's think about what can the downstream communities tolerate in terms of additional water, and do that, and try to release that amount, just that amount na hindi magkaka-damage, hindi magkakapinsala, hindi mababaha, yung kaya nung actual na outflow na hindi na abala yung mga downstream communities. In other words, let's try to get the levels as low as we can without affecting the downstream communities bago pa dumating yung malaking ulan. Because from what we are looking at, it really looks like this storm is more about flooding. May hangin ng konti, but it's not to the extent of the other super typhoons that we have seen so far. So again, water level seems to be the key factor for Kristine. All right, so please carry on.
That's all, Mr. President,
all right.
for my presentation.
Okay, thank you. Now, the OCD, I think, has some information to provide with us.
Good morning, Mr. President
Good
and
morning.
Cabinet members. So, may I have the presentation, please, for Office of Civil Defense. Next slide, please. So, the scope of the presentation would be the situation overview, and then the humanitarian effects, the response, and the gaps. Next slide. This has already been presented by the Pag-asa. So, next slide, please. So basically, Mr. President and Cabinet members, you've seen already in the reports that the massive flooding and unprecedented flooding happened in Region 5. Although, because of the massive or the circulation and the rain band it also affected other areas. You would see that the darker parts are the severity of the flooding events, specifically in Region 5. And if you would look at it, more than 23,000, more than 150,000 has been affected. Next slide. And in terms of casualties, very minimal as of this point in time. And there was already the suspension of classes and the declaration of state of calamity. Next slide. And in terms of status of lifelines, as of this point in time as well, as of reporting time, still as minimal as that. But I think the most important thing to look at, and especially and as the reports come in or the information comes in, it would be the damages on agriculture and even of the livelihood assets of the people. Next slide. Yes, sir.
Can we go one back?
Yes, sir.
One page back.
The previous slide, please.
All right. This is yung status of lifelines is something important that we have to monitor na mabuti.
Yes.
Simply because we are going to have to go into the storm affected areas at some point. So what we have to know for our own people is what are the roads that are possible, what are not, what need to be opened, i-prioritize natin. Kasi as it is already, 93 out of 106 road sections are not possible. Seaports out of 34 in Calabarzon are non-operational. 34 out of 34 are non-operational. 10 out of 10 bridges in Region 5. So talagang it's isolated. The whole
Sir,
region actually is, to a great extent, is isolated.
So basically, some of the inactivity of the seaports and other communication lines were precautionary measures
Yes,
that has been undertaken.
Yeah.
And well noted, sir, on what you've mentioned, that we're still going to see more of the effects later on as the storm passes. As what you have as what has been mentioned by Pag-asa, there's a lot of coverage in terms of areas to be affected still, and these are still initial reports po. And some of them are precautionary measures being undertaken.
Yeah.
And as I've mentioned, there would still a lot to see in terms of damages and losses to agriculture, specifically to the livelihoods of people. And maybe that would be the next part on what to do next. Next slide. And in terms of response, of course, in immediate response, because it's flooding, of course, the need for rubber boats and water search and rescue has been identified early on. And I think one of the issues that we have right now, which we'll be seeing in the later slides, would be the need for logistics to transport, sir. Not just to transport people, but to evacuate people from harm's way. So next slide. And these are the additional needs that we're looking at, and as what I mentioned, that the gaps. Until this morning, there were already requests for additional rubber boats. That's why Office of Civil Defense has already been coordinating with some areas, specifically with Region 6 or Region 7, if there would be available rubber boats to augment the requirement in Region 5. And for those areas that has not been affected yet, where the storm is about to cross, they are already prepositioned more water search and rescue equipment. Of course,